So recently, my friend and colleague Laurel Clark reached out to me and expressed an interest in doing an interview about my new book called The Power of Affirmations and Positive Self-Talk. Of course, I said yes. And since we didn't really talk about Laurel that much during the interview, I just wanted to let you know a little bit about her. She describes herself as a dreamologist. She's a speaker and an interfaith minister. She's a former president of the School of Metaphysics. She's also on the board of the International Association for the Study of Dreams. She's also a prolific author of such titles as Intuitive Dreaming, Karmic Healing, The Law of Attraction and Other Secrets of Visualization, and Dharma, Finding Your Soul's Purpose. You can find out more about her at laurelclark.com. I'll have links to her website as well as other things that we discuss in the show notes and description of this recording. So pull up a chair and enjoy.
Well, thank you for being with us here today. For those of you who do not know Bob Baker, he and I are both in St. Louis, Missouri. However, he has a following all over the world. And I met Bob a number of years ago. He is an author, a musician. He does comedy improv. So his background here is when he does online comedy improv, but he's been doing that in St. Louis for years. He's a teacher. There are many, many other things that he does. And he has a book out that I don't know if you can, it's backwards on my screen. So hopefully
it's looking right for me. And I like all the Post-it notes that you have in there.
Yes, as you can tell, I bookmarked a lot of pages. I'm not one for dog-earing books, so I like to use bookmarks. So welcome, Bob. And I'm wondering how you even got into doing affirmations from all of the other things that you do.
Yeah, well, so there's two aspects, I guess, to my doing affirmations. One is how I've used them personally in my own life, and then there's the more public aspect of when I started publishing them or posting them on YouTube, which started about 5 years ago. And because of that and the success, the views that those types of recordings got, I now only exclusively do affirmations and guided meditations on my YouTube channel. It's just grown beyond my wildest dreams. You want me to talk about maybe the prior to that, how I've used them in my own life, or?
Sure.
Cool. So you mentioned I've done a lot of pretty cool things, and I know it is a little mind-boggling, the variety of things that I've done. And when I share those things, it's not to overwhelm people or think, oh, how does he do all that stuff? I can never do. It's really just to let people know what's possible. And I've just always been pursuing my creative interests. So I've done a lot of things in the arts over the years. I played music. I released several albums worth of original material. This new book is actually my 16th book since the 90s. I'm trying not to have it fade in my background there. It magically disappears. Look at that. I'm also a magician apparently, or an illusionist. So I published many books. One of my books appeared in the movie The School of Rock for a few seconds, starring Jack Black back in the day. I've done improv. I co-wrote a book with Laura Hall from Whose Line Is It Anyway? So I've done just many really cool things. So you would think that right out of the gate, I was this ambitious kid who was a class clown and was in all the school plays and all that. But that was not the case. In grade school and high school, I was actually quite shy and socially awkward and really lacked confidence and sense of self-worth was non-existent. I wasn't good at sports, so I got picked on by all the boys in grade school, and which kind of forced me to do things that I had more control over, which led me to do things like writing and music and art and so on. But it was actually a pivotal moment in my life. It was around my junior year of high school. I was kind of going through a rough time, and a friend of mine said, "I could tell you're kind of going through a tough time because this is a book that's helped me, and maybe it'll help you too." And it was actually Wayne Dyer's first book called Your Erroneous Zones. Do you remember that?
I do.
I
read
that
it
one?
in the late 70s, I think.
Yeah, or maybe mid 70s. Yeah, even that very first book. And he went on to be very prolific as an author. Sadly, passed away about 5 years ago. But that first book, yeah, it was just more like pop psychology stuff, and it's opened my eyes to like I am not a victim of my thoughts. I was, we all live our lives on autopilot, or so many of us, thinking that if you're having feelings of doubt or worry or fear, that there's things that are happening. I feel these things; they must be just part of who I am, and they become part of your identity. When that book opened my eyes to the fact that I actually can control my thoughts. I'm not my thoughts. I can choose a different way to think, and which will lead to a different way to feel, and so on, and kind of change my self identity. So that was the first. Of course, it wasn't like everything I lived happily ever after after that point, but it was the beginning. It was my first eureka moment, and so it led to a personal development journey throughout my life. And affirmations have been a big part of that. I remember, yeah, I used to. There was a time when I read my first couple of books out, maybe in the late '90s or sometime in the '90s, when I maybe had to work day jobs, or I was just kind of scraping by doing my own freelance stuff. And I said affirmations that I'm going to be making a living as an author or doing these various things, and I had dollar amounts that I would say. And it took a while, but I reached those goals and went beyond them. And then along the way, things I never even expected to happen came about. It's just me pursuing the things that I thought that I wanted in my life. So yeah, so I've been using them in various forms for many, many years. So it wasn't really odd for me to, and I was actually seeking those out 5 or 6 years ago on YouTube, and not really being happy with what I found. Because I don't know about you, Laurel, but I'm very picky about like the voice that I listen to, like with guided meditations. Like you really got to feel the person. They're soothing. Like if I'm distracted by either the voice, something I don't like about it, or the background music is too busy or too loud, I can't really, what do you call it, surrender myself to the process. And so after being disappointed with a lot of what I was finding, I said, I think I could create something that I'm looking for, but I can't find. And that's when I started posting them on YouTube. Yeah, so that's kind of a little bit of a story there.
So let me ask this question for viewers or listeners who have heard the word affirmation, but they don't really know what it is. What is an affirmation?
That's that, and that's. I'm glad that you're asking that question, because like one of my purposes is to make this accessible to a lot of people, because there's different people maybe even don't know what they are, or they already have a notion of what it is. So basically, affirmations and positive self-talk, they're statements that you say to yourself either in your mind or out loud that affirm a state of being or something that you want, a goal that you want to reach, and you're just reminding of yourself. You're like implanting that in your mind, so that it becomes part of what I like to call your filter through which you view the world. So they come in all different forms. They're quite often that begin with I am. They're often stated in the present tense. There's different ways of doing these things. And if people that are a little bit older might remember, Senator Al Franken, before he was a politician, he was a comedic actor and a cast member on Saturday Night Live. And he had this character named Stuart Smalley that would have this phrase where he'd look in the mirror and he'd say, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. And I remember laughing at that character back then. And so a lot, even though it was funny, he didn't really do a great service to affirmations, because he was kind of poking fun at it and the people that say them. So when I initially started saying them to myself or writing them, I felt silly. I said, "No, this is this is hokey. What am I doing here?" But I stuck with it and started seeing the benefits. And I've heard this feedback from other people too. Like at first you go, "Really? I'm going to be saying these things to myself?" But they start to influence your perspective. I use the example. Other people have used this type of example, but in the book I talk about. I still drive this car called the Honda Element. I've had it for many years. It's a very specific make and model. It's like a box-shaped car. And prior to owning one, I never even thought about Honda Elements. I don't think I even knew the name of that car, and And so it was never something I thought about. Once I owned one and was driving it on a daily basis, I started seeing them everywhere. Now, why is that? It's not because they suddenly appeared when I started driving one. They were there the whole time, but I just didn't notice them. So basically, the way that affirmations work is that our brains can't possibly receive and notice all the stimulus that's all around us. So our brain has a filter that is developed whether we know it or not. And it's developed through our experiences and the things we tell ourselves and things that other people say to us. And it's just accumulation of things over the years. It's this filter through which we see the world. And so I had developed by having that car, this Honda Element was now part of my filter because I experienced it on a regular basis. So I started seeing them. So I contend, and I know that it just doesn't work with makes and models of cars or shapes. It works with your attitudes, with your beliefs, with your, are you looking for opportunities, or are you looking for reasons to be offended? So it affects all. So affirmations are doing that, basically creating a Honda Element in your mind of the things that you want, how you want to experience life. And you can be intentional about that and actually create the thoughts, the feelings, start noticing the things that are going to serve you and allow you to live a happier, more fulfilling life when you make it a daily, especially when you make it a daily or regular practice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I actually have a question I want to ask a little bit later about the daily practice, but I want to ask about that Stuart Smalley joke where he ended with saying, "Doggone it, people like me." Yeah. You write in your book about how affirmations need to be about you and not about other people. So can you say more about that? Because we don't really have any control over whether people like us or not.
Yes, because I see, now that I've been 5 years pretty deeply immersed in affirmations, and I do done a lot of research on just different ways of approaching them and what people are asking about and what other YouTubers and podcasters or how they're approaching it. But there are people that do affirmations or want to do affirmations on how to attract a specific person, or how, or I really want my husband or my son or whatever to do this or that. And you can't really do affirmations. At least I don't recommend it for other people's behavior or feelings. So you always have to pose them in how you show up, like what's your role in that. And so I think I used the example in the book about if a parent was concerned about a child and they weren't doing well in school, you weren't saying Jimmy's doing well in school. You go, what's your role in that? I create a supportive environment for Jimmy. I see him flourishing. So it's like your affirmations should always be pointed toward your way you're thinking, your behavior, and how you can support that person. As far as it's really tough to when it comes to love affirmations, I would not do them at a specific person, because there may be somebody better out there that you will, by focusing on a specific person who's maybe not responding to you, you're ignoring other opportunities. But you say you focus on yourself and say, I deserve a loving, caring partner. I am worthy of love. You keep it more generic. And if it is that person, great. But it could be somebody else and somebody better. So always keep it focused on yourself, because you cannot control other people's behaviors or how they feel. So all you can do is focus on how you show up in those situations.
Yeah, that's great. The way that I do that is not even focusing on the partner and what I want in the partner, but the qualities in me that are desirous of true and genuine expression. And so I used to think of it as being inside out, like how I am on the inside, I can completely be that outwardly in this relationship. And so whoever is a match for that instead of saying, I want a person who has this quality and that quality and that quality. So that's what I've found works for me in that situation.
Yeah. And I don't know if I addressed this specifically in the book. I know I have other videos and stuff, but quite often anything we want, whether it's a person or a goal or some status in life, or we want to publish a book or whatever, or if we want to earn enough money to purchase something, a new car, a house, The thing we really want, like we think we want the thing or the person, but we're really wanting the feeling that we anticipate that thing is going to give us in the having of it, or the possession of it in the case of things, not a person, of course. But it's so if you can identify the feeling that you're wanting as a result of pursuing that thing, what's the real feeling that you want to ultimately achieve, you can actually feel that right now. So if you feel like you're worthy of love and that you're loving and that you're loved, without maybe an actual partner in your life, I think it does open you up to be more receptive to someone. Or when you're feeling abundant, when maybe there's not a lot of money in your bank account, it's a lot better position to attract more money and look for opportunities than when you're desperate and, oh my God, all is lost, that, and you're just so closed up that it's hard to act and to pursue those things. It's tough when it's from a sense of desperation, but if you can somehow make yourself feel abundant, just there's an abundance of air, there's an abundance of ideas, there's an abundance of compliments and maybe friends or whatever, count your blessings, then you're more open, I think, to pursue those things that you want.
That's a really good point. And I actually have a question about that, because I have known people who struggle with money, and they'll say affirmations like, I deserve all the wealth in the world, or I'm abundant. And they don't really believe it though. Right. And so how do you recommend that somebody go from really not believing, and sometimes not even believing it's possible, where when they say the affirmation, it's kind of like a cover up or a pretense. There's something that is now called imposter syndrome. Yeah. So what do you recommend for that? Where it would be great if you could feel it, but if the person is not really feeling it, how to bridge that to be able to create the state of mind or feeling or consciousness that will cause the change.
So I think there's two ways that you could approach it. You could either combine them or do one first and then the other second. So basically, let's staying with the topic of money is actually a great example for this. So it is true, if you have $10 in your bank account and behind on rent and all that stuff, and you say, I am abundant, or especially if you say things like, I am a millionaire, money is flowing into my life, your brain's going to be going, no, it's not. That's a bunch of BS, And so it could certainly, it actually makes a lot of people actually feel at least temporarily worse about it. So what I recommend is that you state or seek out or whatever, or write out affirmations that ring true for where you are right now. So a great example with abundance, instead of saying money's flowing into my life, or I'm a millionaire, which was really not be authentic as far as the moment goes, saying I am ready for a new relationship with money. That's true, right? I think you could state authentically without your brain doing too. Or how about I am open and receptive for new ways of money flowing into my life. You are open, right? You're receptive. So hopefully those ring true. So soften them or make them positive with a positive slant where you currently are, and don't and avoid like negative, like I'm sick and tired of being. Being in debt would not be a good affirmation, because it's focusing on you being sick and tired and being in debt. So just phrase it in a way that's focused on, I'm open to new opportunities. I'm eager to discover a new, our money comes to me in expected and unexpected ways. It's another kind of fun affirmation, because this is leaving it open to possibilities instead of having tunnel vision. So that's one aspect, is to make them feel or word them so that they're authentic for where you are now. However, there's something to be said for the fake it till you make it approach too. I just did an interview with a friend of mine. His name is Anthony, and we first became friends because he is a musician, and he discovered me, or first became aware of me years ago through my music marketing books, which I was still involved in that, but I published many of them early in my career. And but he followed me through this whole transition to affirmations, and he has this lawn care business. He started mowing lawns just as a solo guy to make extra money, and then people started asking him to do landscaping, and he slowly built this company. And he really went into all in on affirmations and visualization. And he said he would he actually just grossed, his company grossed over $1 million in 2020. I just
Wow.
interviewed him recently, and it was double what he did the previous year. And so he did it during the pandemic. But he was talking about his process, and he would 2 or 3 times a day he would set these goals. Say, "My company now makes $1 million." He goes, and a lot of times he was saying it, going, "This is crazy. I don't know how we're going to get there." But he kept saying them, even though his mind was kind of like, I was like not believing it. So there's an example of somebody who just resisted that negative thing, just kept saying it, kept pushing forward, and it helped him see opportunities because he eventually started. Well, I don't know if even if he didn't believe it every time, it helped him look for opportunities and get there. And so you can take either approach, the fake it till you make it, or if it's really causing a lot of resistance in your mind, just word them in ways that are authentic for where you are now. You know?
Along those lines, I've heard people say that affirmations should always be in the present tense rather than the future. What do you think about that?
Generally, yes. I am abundant. I am, yes. There is, there's a quote. Well, yeah, there's a quote by that was I've heard originally from Michael Beckwith, who is part of the Agape International Spiritual Center out in L.A. and has written a number of books, been on Oprah and all this stuff. But he has a line that was used and actually in a song that he created, where it's and I've shared it on YouTube, and a lot of people don't like this because the statement is something wonderful is always on the verge of happening. So a lot of people don't like that because that they think, oh, you're just out of reach, and you're reinforcing the not having of it. But really, it all depends, I guess, on what your intention is or how you feel about it when you state a certain affirmation. To me, I think of that more like a kid on Christmas morning, where you get up and you have no idea. There's wrapped presents all under the tree. You're so excited. You have no idea what they are. You're not experiencing them yet, but you're on the verge of this discovery. And I love that kind of state of mind. So to me, it's exciting. Something surprising is going to happen today. I can't wait for it to happen. Another thing, and this is more I mean about goal setting in particular, is that people say when you visualize your goals that you should think of them as already having taken place. And I think that I think there's a lot of value in that. However, some people can get, like, I remember I was at a Jack Canfield workshop many years ago, and this woman stood up and was talking about this as it related to her health. And she goes, in my mind, I see myself as a rail thin supermodel. So these days I eat whatever I want because I figured I'm already in great shape in my mind. And everybody laughed, but it brought up a good point that I also recommend that you visualize and affirm the process of getting there. And so, like, if you want to publish a book, if that's one of your goals, you should affirm, I am a successfully published author. You can see yourself at a book signing with people lining up, but also visualize yourself sitting down and writing every day and enjoying the process and the words just flowing, So I think there's a lot of value in affirming the behavior you're going to have to enact to reach that goal, in addition to seeing it from the end in the present tense.